It all started the night I found an unfamiliar pair of men's shoes by the front door. I had just come home from a business trip, exhausted but looking forward to a quiet evening with my wife, Jessica. Instead, I walked into what felt like someone else's life. The shoes weren't mine. I stood there, staring at them, my heart pounding. Jessica's car was in the driveway, so she was home. But whose shoes were these? Jess, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. From the kitchen, I heard her laugh. A laugh that didn't sound like it was meant for me. It was followed by a man's voice, low and confident. My stomach twisted. I stepped further into the house, each step heavier than the last. As I turned the corner into the kitchen, there they were, Jessica, leaning against the counter, a glass of wine in her hand, and a man I didn't recognize sitting casually on one of the stools. He was tall, with an easy smile that disappeared the moment he saw me. Jessica froze, her face a mask of panic. "Michael, you're home early. Who is this?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. The man stood up, his hands raised defensively. "Hey, man. I didn't know she was married." Jessica's eyes darted between us, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't decide what to say. The room felt like it was spinning, and I could barely hear her over the rushing in my ears. "Michael, I can explain," she finally said, but the words were hollow. That night was the beginning of the unraveling. Jessica admitted to having an emotional connection with this guy, Eric, though she insisted nothing physical had happened. It was a lie. I could see it in her eyes, hear it in the way her voice faltered, but I wasn't ready to confront the full scope of her betrayal yet. Instead, I moved into the guest room, trying to process the wreckage of our marriage. Over the next few weeks, I became a detective in my own home. Jessica's behavior changed. She was more secretive, her phone always within arm's reach. One night, when she left it unattended, I finally gave in to temptation and unlocked it. What I found confirmed my worst fears. Explicit texts, photos, and even plans for future rendezvous with Eric. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages, each one a knife to the gut. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started planning. If Jessica was willing to destroy our marriage for Eric, then I needed to protect myself. I quietly gathered evidence, documenting everything from her texts to her late-night disappearances. I even reached out to a lawyer, laying the groundwork for what I knew was inevitable. The breaking point came when Jessica didn't come home one night. She didn't bother to answer my calls or texts, leaving me alone in a house that no longer felt like a home. When she finally stumbled in the next morning, reeking of alcohol and cheap cologne, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Was it worth it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me, confusion and guilt flashing across her face. "What are you talking about?" I threw her phone on the table, the screen still showing one of Eric's messages. Him. "Everything you've been doing behind my back." Her face went pale. "Michael, don't," I snapped. "Don't lie to me. I know everything." For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then, to my surprise, she started crying. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. I don't know what's wrong with me." Her apology felt hollow, like she was more upset about being caught than about what she had done. In the weeks that followed, I moved forward with the divorce. Jessica tried to convince me to go to counseling to work things out, but I was done. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. What I didn't expect was how deeply Eric's involvement would entangle us all. One night, As I was packing up my things to move out, I found a letter slipped under the door. It was from him. Michael, asterisk, you don't know me, but I owe you an apology. I didn't know Jessica was married when we started seeing each other. By the time I found out, it was too late. She told me she was going to leave you, that your marriage was already over. I believed her. I'm sorry for my part in this. Asterisk. Eric. The anger I felt toward him shifted in that moment. He wasn't blameless, but Jessica had been the one to destroy the foundation of our marriage. She had lied to both of us. What followed was a roller coaster of emotions and revelations. Just when I thought the worst was behind me, I discovered that Jessica had been hiding more than just an affair. She had drained our joint bank account, leaving me scrambling to rebuild my finances. And as I pieced together the truth, I uncovered even darker secrets about her past that made me question everything I had ever known about the woman I married. But I didn't let it break me. With every betrayal, I found strength I didn't know I had. I rebuilt my life piece by piece, determined to come out of this stronger than before. And as for Jessica, her lies and manipulations eventually caught up with her, leaving her to face the consequences of her actions alone. In the end, I realized that sometimes the greatest betrayal isn't losing someone you love. It's discovering that they were never who you thought they were. Moving out of the house felt like severing the last tie to a life I no longer recognized. The once warm and inviting space now felt tainted by deception and loss. I left behind the memories but took with me the lessons, hard-earned and deeply etched into my soul. In the months that followed, rebuilding became my focus. I rented a small apartment on the other side of town, sparse but comforting in its simplicity. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects to regain financial stability after Jessica's betrayal. Slowly, the fog of anger and sadness began to lift, replaced by a sense of determination I hadn't felt in years. But just as I started to feel like I was getting back on my feet, Jessica's shadow loomed again. One day, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a deep voice greeted me. "Is this Michael?" "Yes," I replied cautiously. "This is Detective Harris. We're conducting an investigation involving Jessica Carter, and we need to ask you a few questions." My heart sank. "What's this about?" The detective's tone was professional but firm. "We believe she may be involved in financial fraud and embezzlement. We'd like to know if you're aware of any unusual activities or transactions during your marriage." The conversation opened a floodgate of memories. Jessica's secretive behavior, the drained bank accounts, the late-night phone calls she always took in another room. It all started to make sense. Her betrayal hadn't been confined to our marriage. It had spilled over into every facet of her life. I agreed to cooperate with the investigation, providing bank statements and any other documentation I still had. As I delved into the evidence, I uncovered even more lies. Jessica hadn't just betrayed me emotionally and financially. She had built her entire life on a foundation of deceit. Weeks turned into months as the investigation unfolded. Jessica was eventually arrested, charged with multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. The news didn't bring me the satisfaction I thought it might. Instead, it left me feeling hollow, a reminder of how far she had fallen and how much damage she had caused. But the revelations didn't end there. During the trial, I learned about Eric's deeper involvement. While he initially claimed ignorance, it became clear that he had known more than he let on. The two of them had conspired together, using their illicit relationship to fuel a web of lies and schemes that ensnared more victims than just me. In the aftermath, I focused on moving forward. Therapy became a lifeline, helping me process the layers of betrayal and rebuild my sense of self. I reconnected with old friends, found joy in hobbies I had abandoned, and even started dating again. Tentatively, at first, but with an openness I hadn't expected to find. One evening, while attending a charity event through work, I met someone who changed everything. Her name was Natalie, and she had a quiet strength about her that drew me in. We started with coffee, then dinners, and eventually, long walks where we shared our stories. She had her own scars, her own battles, but together we found a kind of healing neither of us had thought possible. Years later, I found myself in a place I never imagined I'd reach. Jessica's actions no longer defined me. The pain she caused had become a chapter in my story, not the whole book. With Natalie by my side, I built a life rooted in trust, love, and mutual respect, the kind of life I once thought was out of reach. And as for Jessica, the last I heard, she was serving her sentence, her charm and manipulation finally meeting their limits. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't feel anything at all. She was a part of my past, but my future belonged to me. Life with Natalie brought a kind of peace I hadn't known in years. She had a way of grounding me, of reminding me that while the past shapes us, it doesn't have to define us. Together, we built something real, something worth fighting for. Years into our relationship, Natalie and I decided to buy a house. It was a small place on a quiet street, with a big yard and plenty of sunlight streaming through the windows. For the first time, I felt at home again. It wasn't just a house. It was a fresh start. One afternoon, while unpacking boxes in the living room, Natalie found an old photo album I'd brought with me. She sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through the pages, her expression soft. "Is this your family?" she asked, pointing to a photo of me with my parents at a holiday gathering. I nodded, sitting beside her. Yeah, that was Thanksgiving a few years before they retired and moved to Florida. They always loved hosting big dinners. Her finger traced the edges of the photo. "You look happy." I said, surprising myself with the realization that even amidst the chaos, there had been moments of genuine joy. The photo album became a catalyst for deeper conversations about our lives before we met. Natalie shared stories about her childhood, her first love, and the heartbreak that led her to rebuild. I talked about my marriage to Jessica, the betrayal that shattered it, and the journey to find myself again. There was no judgment, only understanding. "You've been through so much," she said one night as we lay in bed. The room bathed in the soft glow of a bedside lamp. "So have you," I replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "But we made it, and we're stronger for it." A few years later, we decided to start a family. The prospect was daunting, but also exhilarating. When our son, Ethan, was born, I felt a depth of love I hadn't known was possible. Holding him in my arms, I made a silent promise to be the kind of father he could always count on. Parenthood brought its own challenges, but Natalie and I navigated them together. We celebrated milestones, weathered sleepless nights, and marveled at the way Ethan's laughter could fill a room. He had Natalie's curiosity and my stubborn determination, a combination that made every day an adventure. As the years went on, Jessica's name became a distant memory. The pain she caused no longer held power over me. Occasionally, I'd hear snippets about her life from mutual acquaintances. She had been released from prison, but her charm and manipulation had left her isolated. I felt no animosity, only a quiet pity for someone who had squandered so much potential. One day, as I was walking through the park with Ethan, he asked a question that stopped me in my tracks. "Dad, did you ever have someone you loved before Mom?" I paused, considering how to answer. "I did," I said finally. "But sometimes, love doesn't work out the way you hope it will. And that's okay, because it leads you to where you're meant to be." He nodded thoughtfully, his small hand slipping into mine. "I'm glad you found Mom." "Me too, buddy," I said, my heart full. In the quiet moments of my life now, I often reflect on the path that brought me here. The betrayal that once consumed me has become a distant chapter in a much larger story. Taught me resilience, strength, and the value of true love. And as I watch Ethan grow, with Natalie by my side, I know that every twist and turn was worth it to arrive at this place. The past will always be a part of me, but it no longer defines me. My life is my own, and it is beautiful. As the years rolled on, the life Natalie and I built together continued to blossom. Ethan grew into a thoughtful, curious young man who carried the best of both of us. Watching him navigate the world with confidence and kindness filled me with a pride that words couldn't capture. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Ethan brought home a report card filled with glowing remarks. Natalie beamed, and I couldn't help but reflect on how far we'd come. The joy of these small, everyday victories was something I'd never take for granted. After dinner, Ethan asked a question that brought a wave of emotions. "Dad, when you were my age, did you think your life would turn out like this?" I set down my fork and smiled. "Not exactly," I admitted. "Life took me down some unexpected paths, but every choice, every experience brought me here, and I wouldn't trade this for anything." He nodded, satisfied, and returned to his dessert. But his question stayed with me, prompting a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had shaped me. As Ethan entered his teenage years, he began asking more about my past. I was open with him, sharing the lessons I'd learned from my mistakes and hardships. I wanted him to understand that resilience and love were the cornerstones of a fulfilling life. The most important thing, I told him one evening, is to never let the past define you. Learn from it, grow from it, but don't let it hold you back. You have the power to write your own story. Ethan listened intently, his eyes reflecting a wisdom beyond his years. "I will, Dad," he said, and I believed him. Natalie and I often spent quiet evenings reflecting on our shared life. We marveled at how we had found each other amidst the chaos of our individual pasts. She was my anchor, my partner, and my greatest source of strength. Together, we had built something enduring and beautiful. One night, as we sat on the porch watching the stars, she took my hand. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" she asked softly. "Sometimes," I said, "but every choice, every twist and turn, led me to you, and that's all that matters." She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. "I feel the same way." As the years continued to pass, Ethan graduated, went to college, and started a family of his own. Watching him thrive brought me a profound sense of fulfillment. Natalie and I embraced our roles as grandparents, cherishing every moment with our growing family. In the quiet moments, I often thought about the past. Jessica's betrayal, once a source of pain, now felt like a distant memory. It had shaped me, but it no longer held power over me. Instead, it stood as a reminder of how far I'd come and how much I had gained. Now, as I sit in the twilight of my life, surrounded by the love of my family, I am overwhelmed with gratitude. The journey was far from easy, but it was worth every step. The past may have shaped me, but it was the love and resilience that defined me. And as I look into the eyes of my grandchildren, I know that the legacy I leave behind isn't one of pain or betrayal, but one of strength, love, and hope for the future. As the final chapter of my life unfolded, I found myself increasingly drawn to moments of quiet reflection. The years had been kind to Natalie and me, and the life we built was a testament to the resilience of love and the power of second chances. Ethan's family often visited, filling our home with laughter and energy, a joyful reminder of how far we'd come. One sunny afternoon, as I sat on the porch with Natalie, we watched our grandchildren play in the yard. Their laughter carried on the breeze, mingling with the rustle of leaves. Natalie turned to me, her eyes warm with affection. "Do you ever think about writing it all down?" she asked. "What do you mean?" I replied, though I suspected where she was going. "Your story," she said. "Everything you've been through, everything we've built. It could be something for Ethan and the kids to look back on one day." I considered her words, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "Maybe I will," I said, "but I think it's more important to live it, to show them through actions, not just words." Natalie nodded, squeezing my hand. "You've always had a way of teaching through example." As the years continued to pass, the lessons I'd learned became an integral part of our family's legacy. Ethan often sought my advice as he navigated the challenges of raising his own children, and I found immense joy in watching him pass those lessons on. His strength, compassion, and determination were reflections of the love and guidance Natalie and I had poured into him. One evening, Ethan and I sat together on the porch, the sky painted with the soft hues of sunset. He turned to me, his expression thoughtful. "Dad," he began, "how did you manage to move on from everything? From the pain, the betrayal? How did you find peace?" I took a deep breath, letting the question settle. "It wasn't easy," I admitted. "There were days when it felt impossible, but I realized that holding on to anger and regret only kept me tied to the past. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to focus on what's ahead, on the people who matter most." Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. "Thanks, Dad. That's something I'll always carry with me." As my health began to decline, I felt no fear, only gratitude. Natalie and I spent our days surrounded by family, our home filled with love and laughter. The memories of betrayal and pain that once loomed so large had faded into the background, replaced by a deep sense of fulfillment. One morning, as I sat by the window watching the sunrise, Ethan joined me, a steaming mug of coffee in his hand. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, gesturing to the horizon. "It is," I replied, my voice steady. "Every day is a gift, Ethan. Don't ever take that for granted." He placed a hand on my shoulder, his grip firm. "I won't, Dad." When my time finally came, it was peaceful. Natalie was by my side, her hand in mine, as the room filled with the quiet hum of love and connection. My last thoughts were of gratitude for the life I had lived, the lessons I had learned, and the family that would carry those lessons forward. And as the world faded, I felt a profound sense of peace. My story was complete, and it was beautiful. As the years continued to unfold, the legacy of love and resilience Natalie and I built grew stronger. Ethan's family became the center of our lives, their presence a constant reminder of the beauty that had emerged from the challenges we once faced. One crisp autumn evening, the family gathered in our backyard for a bonfire. The smell of roasting marshmallows filled the air as the grandchildren's laughter blended with the crackling of the fire. Natalie and I sat side by side, wrapped in a warm blanket, watching the flames dance against the twilight sky. Ethan approached, holding a mug of cider for each of us. He settled down on the bench next to me, his expression reflective. "Dad," he said, his voice low, "I've been thinking about the stories you used to tell me, about the struggles, the lessons. They've shaped so much of who I am. Have you ever thought about sharing them with the grandkids?" I smiled, taking a sip of the cider. "Maybe when they're older. Right now they're too busy being kids. But one day, when the time is right, I'll share everything with them." Natalie leaned her head on my shoulder, her voice soft. "They'll carry those lessons forward, just like Ethan did. That's how a legacy lives on." The seasons continued to pass, and with each year, our family grew closer. The tree Ethan and I had planted when he was a boy now stood tall in the center of the yard, its branches stretching wide as if to embrace the generations that gathered beneath it. It became a symbol of strength and continuity, much like the life we had built together. One afternoon, as I sat beneath its shade with my youngest granddaughter, Lily, she looked up at me with wide, curious eyes. "Grandpa," she asked, "what's the most important thing you've learned in your life?" I paused, considering her question. "That's a big question for such a little girl," I teased, ruffling her hair. She giggled but waited patiently for my answer. "The most important thing I've learned," I said finally, "is that love and forgiveness are stronger than anything else. They're what help us grow, what keep us connected, and they're what make life truly worth living." Lily nodded solemnly, as though she understood more than her years might suggest. "I'll remember that," she promised. In the twilight of my life, I often found myself reflecting on how far I had come. The pain and betrayal of my past no longer held any weight. They had been transformed into stepping stones that led me to this moment. Natalie and I had created a life filled with joy, surrounded by the love of our children and grandchildren. One evening, as Natalie and I sat on the porch watching the sun set, she reached for my hand. "We've had a good life, haven't we?" I looked at her, my heart full. "The best." She smiled, her eyes glistening in the fading light. "I'm glad we found each other." "So am I," I said, leaning over to kiss her cheek. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." When my time finally came, I was surrounded by the people I loved most. Natalie held my hand, her presence a comfort as I drifted into my final moments. My last thoughts were of gratitude for the love we shared, for the family we had built, and for the journey that brought me here. And as I closed my eyes for the last time, I felt at peace, knowing that my story would live on in the hearts of those who carried it forward. After my passing, the family gathered to celebrate the life Natalie and I had built together. The tree in the center of the yard became the focal point of the gathering, its towering branches offering shade and comfort as loved ones shared stories and laughter beneath its boughs. Ethan stood at the base of the tree, holding a small wooden box. Inside were letters I had written over the years, messages filled with advice, love, and reflections on the lessons life had taught me. He opened the first letter, his voice steady as he read aloud to the family. "Dear Ethan, life is a series of moments, some filled with joy, others with challenge. What matters most is how we carry ourselves through them. Always remember that love and forgiveness are your greatest strengths. They will guide you through the darkest times and anchor you in the light. I am so proud of the man you've become. Never stop growing, and never stop loving. Love, Dad. Ethan's voice faltered as he finished, emotion catching in his throat. He looked around at the gathered faces, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on all of them. Natalie stepped forward, her strength as unwavering as ever. She placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, her gaze soft but determined. Your father's legacy isn't just in these letters. It's in the love we share, the lessons we pass on, and the memories we carry. This tree, it's a reminder of everything he stood for. The family nodded, their grief tempered by a sense of unity and purpose. Each person took a turn sharing a story, their voices blending into a symphony of remembrance. Tales of resilience, humor, and unwavering love painted a vivid picture of the man who had touched so many lives. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the yard, Ethan's youngest daughter, Lily, approached the tree. She placed a small sapling at its base, her hands covered in soil as she gently patted the earth around it. "This is for Grandpa," she said, her voice filled with quiet determination, "so his love can keep growing." The gesture brought tears to Natalie's eyes, and she knelt beside Lily, wrapping her in a hug. "He would be so proud of you," she whispered. In the years that followed, the tree and the sapling became symbols of continuity and hope. The family continued to gather beneath their branches, each generation adding its own stories to the tapestry of memories. Ethan often read from my letters during these gatherings, ensuring that my words lived on in the hearts of those I loved. Natalie, ever the pillar of strength, carried on with grace and determination. She found solace in the family's unity, her love for them a reflection of the bond we had shared. And as the sapling grew, its branches intertwining with the older tree, it became a living testament to the enduring power of love and resilience. Though my physical presence was gone, my spirit remained woven into the fabric of the family's life. In their laughter, their kindness, and their unwavering support for one another, I saw the fulfillment of everything I had ever hoped for. And so, my story did not end with my passing. It lived on in the roots of the tree, in the voices of my family, and in the unbroken chain of love that connected us all. As the years stretched on, the tree and its sapling became intertwined, their branches reaching upward together in a display of strength and unity. The family's gatherings beneath them became a cherished tradition, a time to celebrate milestones, share stories, and pass on the wisdom of those who had come before. Ethan, now a grandfather himself, often found solace beneath the canopy of leaves. One evening, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, he sat with his granddaughter Lily, now a young woman, and her younger siblings. The twilight painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, casting a serene glow over the yard. "Grandpa," Lily began, her voice tinged with curiosity, "tell us more about the letters you read to us when we were kids. What made them so special?" Ethan leaned back against the sturdy trunk of the tree, his expression thoughtful. "They were more than just letters," he said. "They were a guide. My father, your great-grandfather, poured his heart into those words. They were his way of reminding us what truly matters in life." Lily nodded, her eyes shining with understanding. "I remember the one about love and forgiveness. It's always stayed with me." Ethan smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "That was one of his most important lessons. Love and forgiveness are what kept our family strong through every challenge, and they're what will keep us strong in the future." As the younger children played in the yard, Lily turned to Ethan with a shy smile. I've been thinking, maybe I could write something too, like Great-Grandpa did, to keep the tradition alive. Ethan's face lit up with pride. That's a wonderful idea, Lily. Your words could inspire the next generation, just like his did for us. Encouraged by her grandfather's support, Lily began crafting her own reflections, weaving the lessons of the past with her dreams for the future. Her writings became a new chapter in the family's story, a continuation of the legacy that had started long ago. Over time, the tree became a symbol not only for the family but for the community. Neighbors often joined the gatherings, drawn by the warmth and connection that radiated from the family's traditions. The lessons written in the letters, now bound into a cherished book, were shared far and wide, touching the lives of people beyond the family's immediate circle. Natalie's memory remained a guiding force. Though she had passed on, her strength and wisdom were deeply ingrained in the family's fabric. Her love for the family and the values she upheld continued to inspire each new generation. As Ethan grew older, he found peace in knowing that the legacy he had inherited and nurtured was in good hands. Sitting beneath the intertwined branches of the tree and its sapling, he reflected on the unbroken chain of love, resilience, and hope that connected them all. One evening, surrounded by his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, Ethan read aloud from one of his father's original letters. The words, though written decades ago, resonated just as deeply as they had the first time. Life is a series of moments, some filled with joy, others with challenge. What matters most is how we carry ourselves through them. Always remember that love and forgiveness are your greatest strengths. They will guide you through the darkest times and anchor you in the light. As he finished, the family sat in silence, the weight of the words settling over them like a comforting blanket. In that moment, they knew the truth of the legacy they shared. A legacy that would continue to grow, just like the tree that stood steadfast in the yard. And so, the story lived on, not as a singular tale but as an evolving testament to the enduring power of love and connection. It was a story without an end, written anew with each generation that gathered beneath the tree. As the years continued to pass, the intertwined trees became an even greater symbol of the family's legacy. Each branch, each leaf, seemed to hold a story, a memory, or a piece of wisdom passed down through generations. The gatherings beneath them grew larger, with more faces and new voices adding to the chorus of love and connection. Ethan's granddaughter Lily had grown into a remarkable woman. Inspired by her great-grandfather's letters and her own reflections, she became a writer, weaving the lessons of her family into stories that resonated far beyond their yard. Her first book, Roots of Resilience, became a bestseller, touching countless lives with its heartfelt portrayal of love, forgiveness, and the strength found in family. During one of the family's summer gatherings, Lily stood beneath the trees to read an excerpt from her book. Her voice carried across the yard, each word imbued with emotion. The trees in our yard are more than just a part of the landscape. They are a testament to the resilience of love, the beauty of forgiveness, and the enduring power of connection. Their roots run deep, just as our family's bonds do, anchoring us through life's storms and holding us steady in its calm. As she finished, the family erupted into applause, their pride evident. Ethan, now in his twilight years, wiped a tear from his eye. "Your great-grandfather would be so proud," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. One autumn evening, Ethan sat alone beneath the trees, a gentle breeze rustling their leaves. He closed his eyes, letting the memories of his life wash over him. His father's wisdom, Natalie's unwavering love, and the countless moments of joy shared with his family. A sense of peace settled over him, knowing that the legacy he had carried forward was in capable hands. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, Ethan spoke softly, as if addressing the generations before him. Thank you for everything, for the love, the lessons, and the strength to carry on. I hope we've made you proud. Ethan's passing was met with an outpouring of love and remembrance. The family gathered once more beneath the trees to celebrate his life, sharing stories of his kindness, humor, and the profound impact he had on all of them. Lily took on the role of reading one of his final letters, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. To my family, you are my greatest joy and my proudest accomplishment. Never forget the strength you find in each other, and never stop growing. The world is brighter because of the love you share. Carry it forward, and know that I will always be with you. In every laugh, every hug, and every moment of connection beneath these trees. With all my love, Ethan. The intertwined trees continued to stand as a beacon of resilience and unity. Generations came and went, each adding their own chapters to the family's story. And though the faces changed, the values remained the same, rooted deeply in the love and lessons passed down from those who came before. In the end, it wasn't the letters, the books, or even the trees that defined the family's legacy. It was the love they shared, the forgiveness they extended, and the unbroken chain of connection that bound them together. And so, the story lived on, not as a final chapter but as a testament to the enduring power of family. As the years turned into decades, the intertwined trees continued to grow, their branches stretching skyward as if reaching for the future, while their roots anchored firmly in the past. The family gatherings beneath them remained a cherished tradition, a time for stories, laughter, and connection that deepened with each passing generation. Lily, now a celebrated author, often spoke about the profound impact her family's legacy had on her work. Her second book, Branches of Hope, delved even deeper into the themes of resilience and love that had defined her upbringing. It became a cornerstone for readers seeking comfort and inspiration, further spreading the values her great-grandfather had cherished. At one such gathering, Lily's daughter, Emily, approached her with a notebook in hand. "Mom," she began, her voice tinged with excitement, "I've been writing about the trees, about what they mean to our family." Lily's heart swelled with pride as she flipped through the pages, each one filled with thoughtful reflections and vivid descriptions. "These are beautiful," she said. "You have a gift, Emily. Keep writing." Emily nodded, her determination shining. "I want to make sure everyone knows how special our family's story is." Over time, the trees became a landmark in the community. Visitors often stopped by to marvel at their beauty and learn about the family who had nurtured them. Inspired by the family's traditions, other families began planting their own trees, creating a ripple effect of love and resilience that spread far and wide. One spring, the family decided to create a time capsule to bury beneath the trees. Each member contributed something meaningful: letters, photographs, small mementos that represented their hopes and dreams for the future. As they lowered the capsule into the ground, Ethan's great-great-grandson, Lucas, spoke up. "Do you think they'll understand how much we loved each other when they find this?" he asked, his young voice filled with wonder. Lily knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "They will, Lucas, because love like ours doesn't fade. It grows just like these trees." Years later, the time capsule was unearthed by a new generation. The items inside, preserved carefully, became a bridge between the past and the present. The letters from ancestors long gone brought tears and laughter, their words a reminder of the enduring power of family. As Emily read aloud from one of the letters, her voice steady and filled with emotion, she paused to look around at her gathered relatives. "They believed in us," she said, "and now it's our turn to carry this legacy forward." The family nodded in agreement, their bond strengthened by the shared understanding that they were part of something much greater than themselves. In the end, it wasn't just the trees or the stories that defined the family's legacy. It was the love they carried, the forgiveness they offered, and the strength they found in one another. Each generation added their own chapters, their own branches to the family tree, ensuring that the story would never truly end. As the decades turned into centuries, the intertwined trees grew to monumental heights, their branches forming a sprawling canopy that seemed to touch the sky. Beneath them, the family's gatherings evolved into grand reunions, drawing relatives from far and wide to honor the legacy that had bound them together for generations. Emily, now a seasoned writer like her mother Lily, took on the mantle of preserving the family's history. Her books became cherished chronicles of love, resilience, and the enduring power of connection. She often wrote beneath the trees, finding inspiration in their steadfast presence. One summer, during the largest family reunion yet, Emily unveiled a new project, a family archive. It was a beautifully crafted collection of photographs, letters, and mementos that spanned generations, housed in a special room within the family home. "This archive is more than just a collection of items," Emily said during her speech. "It's a testament to who we are and where we come from. It's a reminder that no matter where life takes us, these roots will always bring us back together." The applause that followed was filled with gratitude and pride. Each family member contributed to the archive, adding their own stories and memories, ensuring that the legacy would continue to grow. As the years went on, the trees became a symbol for the entire community. They were featured in local festivals and became a popular destination for visitors. People came to sit beneath their shade, to reflect, and to feel the love and resilience that seemed to emanate from their roots. The family decided to plant new trees in other parts of the community, creating groves that mirrored the original. Each tree was dedicated to a value the family held dear: love, forgiveness, strength, and unity. These groves became gathering places for people to connect and heal, spreading the family's legacy far beyond their own circle. One crisp autumn evening, Emily's grandson, Daniel, approached her with a notebook in hand. "Grandma, I've been writing about the trees," he said, his young face full of excitement. Emily smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Let's see it," she said, patting the seat beside her. Daniel opened the notebook, revealing pages filled with drawings and stories. "I want to make sure people remember what these trees mean to us, to everyone." Tears pricked Emily's eyes as she hugged him. "They will, Daniel. Because of you, they will." As Emily grew older, she found comfort in knowing that the legacy was secure. The trees continued to stand tall, their roots deep and their branches wide, a living testament to the love and resilience that had defined her family for generations. When Emily passed, her family gathered beneath the trees to celebrate her life. Her grandson Daniel, now a young man, read aloud from her final letter. "To my beloved family, these trees have witnessed our laughter, our tears, and our unwavering connection. They are a reminder that our love is eternal, reaching across time and space. Carry this love with you, and let it guide you as it has guided me. With all my heart, Emily. The family's story continued, each generation adding their own chapters, their own branches to the ever-growing tree. And though time marched on, the love, resilience, and unity that had defined them remained unshaken, ensuring that the legacy of the intertwined trees would endure forever. As the generations continued, the intertwined trees stood as eternal witnesses to a family's unwavering bond. Over time, the gatherings beneath their canopy became legendary, attracting people from across the region who came to learn about the love, resilience, and unity that these trees symbolized. Daniel, now a historian and writer, carried forward the family's tradition of storytelling. Inspired by his grandmother Emily and the generations before her, he dedicated his life to chronicling not just their family's journey, but the universal themes of connection and growth that resonated with everyone who encountered their story. The trees, Daniel wrote in one of his books, The Everlasting Roots, are more than a symbol. They are a living testament to the idea that love, when nurtured, can grow beyond the limits of time and space. Their roots anchor us, and their branches reach for the endless possibilities of the future. His work garnered international acclaim, and the family's archive became a treasured resource for scholars, artists, and anyone seeking inspiration. Visitors to the family home were often moved to tears as they walked through the halls lined with photographs and letters, each artifact a piece of the enduring tapestry of love. One summer, the family decided to host a global gathering. Relatives from every corner of the world arrived, many meeting for the first time. Beneath the sprawling canopy of the trees, stories were shared in countless languages, yet all spoke the universal language of connection. At the heart of the gathering, Daniel unveiled a new tradition, planting a seed from the original trees in every place the family called home. These seeds carry our legacy, he said, holding one up for all to see. Wherever they grow, they will remind us of where we come from and the love that binds us together. The first seed was planted that evening, its small sprout a symbol of hope for the future. Family members took seeds back with them, ensuring that the tree's legacy would extend far beyond the original grove. As the years turned into centuries, the network of trees became a global phenomenon. Each one carried its own stories, its own memories, yet all were connected by the shared roots of a family that had chosen love, forgiveness, and resilience as their guiding principles. Visitors from all walks of life found solace beneath these trees, their shade offering comfort and inspiration. Communities adopted the tradition, planting their own groves and creating spaces where people could come together to celebrate unity and growth. In the family's original home, the intertwined trees continued to thrive, their branches now stretching higher than ever. During one quiet evening, Daniel, now an elder, sat beneath them with his own grandchildren. "Tell us the story again, Grandpa," one of them said, their eyes wide with wonder. Daniel smiled, his voice steady as he began. "A long time ago, two trees grew together, their roots intertwined, just like our family. They weathered storms and stood tall through generations, teaching us that love and connection are the strongest forces in the world." The children listened intently, their laughter mingling with the rustle of the leaves. In their eyes, Daniel saw the future, a continuation of the legacy he had spent his life preserving. And so, the story of the intertwined trees and the family they represented continued, an everlasting testament to the power of love and resilience. Each generation added its own chapter, ensuring that the roots of the past would forever nurture the branches of the future. As the centuries passed, the story of the intertwined trees became a legend that transcended the family who first nurtured them. The trees, now towering sentinels of history, stood as a symbol of unity, resilience, and love for an ever-expanding community. Beneath their sprawling canopy, generations gathered to reflect on the values that had been passed down, ensuring that the legacy endured. Daniel's great-granddaughter, Sophia, took up the mantle of preserving and expanding the family's story. A filmmaker with a keen eye for capturing emotion, she decided to document the legacy of the trees and the people who had been shaped by them. Her film, Roots and Branches, became an international phenomenon, weaving together personal interviews, historical accounts, and breathtaking visuals of the global groves that had grown from the original seeds. These trees, Sophia said during an interview, are not just a family story anymore. They've become a symbol for everyone. A reminder that no matter where we come from, we're all connected. The film inspired countless viewers to plant their own trees, each one a pledge to honor love, connection, and resilience in their own lives. Communities around the world began creating legacy groves, spaces dedicated to unity and reflection, all inspired by the intertwined trees. At the original family home, the trees continued to thrive, their roots deep and their branches wide. The family maintained the archive, now housed in a dedicated museum that welcomed visitors from around the globe. Each artifact, from Emily's letters to Daniel's books and Sophia's film reels, told a piece of the story, a mosaic of lives intertwined like the trees themselves. One summer evening, Sophia's son, Ethan, named after his ancestor, stood beneath the trees with his friends. The group marveled at the sheer size and age of the trees, their awe a testament to the enduring power of the legacy. "These trees have seen everything," Ethan said, his voice filled with wonder. "It's like they're alive with the stories of everyone who's ever stood here." His words sparked an idea among the group, leading to the creation of an interactive digital archive. The project allowed visitors to leave their own stories, connecting them to the broader narrative of the trees and their message of resilience. As time marched forward, the intertwined trees remained a constant in an ever-changing world. They stood as a reminder of the enduring strength of love, the importance of forgiveness, and the power of connection. Each new generation added its own chapter, ensuring that the legacy would never fade. And so, the story of the intertwined trees continued, a living testament to the idea that while time may pass and faces may change, the roots of love and unity run deep, anchoring us to the past while guiding us toward the future. The intertwined trees became more than just a family symbol. They transformed into a universal emblem of connection. People from all corners of the world traveled to the original grove, their journeys inspired by the lessons rooted in love, unity, and resilience. Each visitor brought their own story, leaving behind tokens, carvings, and digital notes tied to the branches, creating a living archive of global hope. Sophia's son Ethan, an environmental scientist, spearheaded a project to protect the global network of legacy groves. With the rise of climate awareness, these trees became sanctuaries of preservation and education. Partnering with organizations worldwide, Ethan developed programs that used the groves to teach sustainable practices, emphasizing the interconnectedness of nature and humanity. "These trees," Ethan often said, "are living reminders that we're all part of something bigger. By nurturing them, we nurture ourselves and the world around us." Under his leadership, the original grove was declared a World Heritage Site. Scholars and activists convened annually beneath its canopy, their discussions and initiatives echoing the values first planted generations ago. One spring, during a particularly vibrant family reunion, Sophia's granddaughter Lily unveiled her newest project, a virtual reality experience that allowed users to explore the intertwined trees and their global counterparts. Now, Lily said with a smile, anyone, anywhere, can feel the magic of these trees and the love they represent. The experience garnered international acclaim, becoming a tool for education, therapy, and storytelling. People who had never seen the original grove in person felt its presence, its history, and its message, bringing the legacy to an entirely new audience. As time moved forward, the trees remained steadfast. Families continued to gather beneath their branches, weaving new stories into the ever-expanding tapestry of love and resilience. At the heart of it all, the original grove stood as a beacon, a reminder that no matter how much the world changed, the roots of unity and connection ran deep. One evening, as the sun set over the grove, Ethan's great-grandson Lucas stood beneath the trees with his young daughter. She reached out to touch the bark, her tiny fingers tracing the patterns of time etched into the wood. "What do these trees mean, Daddy?" she asked, her voice soft with wonder. Lucas knelt beside her, placing a hand on the trunk. "They mean that love and family can weather anything, that no matter how far we go or how much changes, we're always connected." She smiled, leaning against him as they watched the stars appear through the branches. The trees, timeless and enduring, whispered their stories to the wind, carrying their legacy forward for generations yet to come. The intertwining trees, now towering above the original grove, stood as a testament to a legacy that spanned centuries. Their roots intertwined with the earth, just as the family's stories intertwined through time. From every branch dangled symbols of remembrance. Ribbons, carvings, and digital tags linked to a growing global archive. Lucas, inspired by the deep connection his ancestors fostered, took a leading role in expanding the legacy. Partnering with global leaders and environmentalists, he initiated the Branches of Unity campaign, a worldwide effort to plant connected groves in regions facing environmental and social challenges. Each grove became a sanctuary, bringing communities together to share their stories, plant new seeds, and learn the lessons of resilience and love. "These trees," Lucas often said during his speeches, "are more than just symbols. They're bridges between past and future, connecting us in ways words alone cannot." At one of the annual reunions, Lucas's daughter, Mia, presented her own contribution to the legacy, an app that allowed people to trace their own family trees and connect them to the global network of groves. "Imagine," she said with excitement, "being able to see how your roots connect with someone halfway across the world." The app became a cultural phenomenon, inspiring individuals to document their histories and foster new connections. People began to share their stories, leaving digital markers tied to specific trees in the network. From love letters to letters of forgiveness, these messages enriched the narrative that had started with two intertwined trees. One winter evening, Lucas found himself standing alone beneath the original grove. Snow blanketed the ground, and the tree's branches sparkled under the moonlight. He placed his hand on the bark, feeling the pulse of history within its trunk. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice carried by the wind, "for teaching us that love endures, that connection strengthens, and that growth never ends." In the following decades, The groves became pilgrimage sites for those seeking solace, inspiration, or a sense of belonging. Families who had never met found shared roots within the network, forming bonds that crossed borders and cultures. Mia's app evolved into a virtual reality platform, allowing users to walk through groves from across the world, connecting to the shared stories left behind. People would gather in virtual spaces, inspired to build their own legacies, united by the enduring values of love, forgiveness, and resilience. At the heart of it all, the original intertwined trees stood strong, their roots deeper than ever. Beneath their canopy, the family continued to gather, weaving new stories and adding to the ever-expanding legacy. One spring, as the family gathered for the largest reunion yet, Lucas's great-granddaughter, Elena, planted a new sapling at the edge of the grove. With her young hands covered in soil, she smiled up at the towering trees. "This is for the future," she said, her voice steady despite her youth, "so that everyone who comes after us knows they belong." The intertwined tree's legacy, born from the love and resilience of one family, became an eternal story. The groves, now scattered across the globe, whispered their wisdom to the wind, carrying their message far and wide. Love grows, connection strengthens, and the roots of unity run deeper than time itself. The intertwined trees stood as eternal sentinels, their towering branches and deep roots holding the stories of countless generations. The groves, scattered across the globe, had become living symbols of hope, unity, and resilience. Yet, as time moved forward, the family's bond remained strongest at the original grove where it all began. Years after Elena planted her sapling, she stood as a leader in continuing the legacy. The sapling, now a robust young tree, had grown beside its predecessors, weaving its branches into the legacy of love and unity that defined the grove. Elena often brought her children to the grove, sharing stories of their ancestors and the lessons etched into the bark of the trees. One summer evening, as the family gathered beneath the canopy, she addressed a crowd of relatives and visitors. "These trees remind us that every action we take ripples into the future," she said. "They are living proof that love, when nurtured, can endure beyond our lifetimes." Her words resonated deeply. The family decided to create a new tradition, a circle of growth, where each member planted a tree to symbolize their commitment to the family's values. Visitors to the grove were invited to do the same, creating a circle that expanded year after year. As the decades passed, the grove became a sanctuary for people from all walks of life. The stories shared beneath the trees, both in person and through digital platforms, created a tapestry of connection that transcended time and distance. The grove's influence reached new heights when it was declared a global cultural heritage site, recognized as a beacon of unity in a divided world. Mia's virtual reality platform continued to evolve, allowing users to interact with the trees and stories in unprecedented ways. People could now leave voice messages, videos, and digital artifacts that became part of the global narrative. Through this, the grove's message reached even those who had never physically visited its hallowed grounds. One autumn evening, as the sun set over the original grove, Lucas sat beneath the oldest tree, its massive trunk a reminder of the journey that had started so long ago. He held a journal in his hands, filled with entries from family members spanning centuries. The final page was blank, waiting for his words. He began to write, "Asterisk to those who come after us. These trees are more than symbols. They are the embodiment of everything we hold dear. Love, forgiveness, resilience, and the unyielding belief that we are stronger together. As you stand beneath their branches, remember that you are part of something greater, a story that began long before you and will continue long after. Tend to these roots, nurture these branches, and let your own stories grow among them. Asterisk. With love, Lucas. Lucas closed the journal and placed it at the base of the tree, a gift for future generations. As the stars emerged overhead, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace, knowing that the legacy of the intertwined trees would endure. And so, the grove's story continued, its roots stretching ever deeper, its branches reaching ever higher. The intertwined trees stood as a timeless testament to the power of love and connection, whispering their wisdom to all